Hello, good morning, everybody. And 恭喜发财，新年快乐, Happy Lunar New Year. Today, I just want to make a very short video and to share with my friends and students about this topic of whether we use AI-powered or automated writing editors when you want to, like Grammarly or ChatGPT, when you have produced some writing and you want to check your grammar or check your vocab or check your style. And the topic is when I do that, will AI tools diminish my writer's voice? So that's my question. And then I'm going to share with you my conversation, my debate with DeepSeek. DeepSeek is this new model which shows you the thinking process. So unlike ChatGPT, that just provides you with a response to your prompt, DeepSeek will also show you the thinking process, part of the thinking process. So here is my question, my prompt. Does AI-powered language editors run the risk of making students lose their voice, converging to the native speaker voice? So here's the thinking process of DeepSeek. So you say, okay, the user is asking whether AI-powered language editors might make students lose their unique voice by pushing them towards a native speaker standard. Let me break this down. First, I need to understand what AI language editors do. They help with grammar, style, and vocab, right? Tools like Grammarly or Microsoft Editor. Then the concern is that these tools might standardize the way students write, making their work sound too similar, too cliche, well, that's what I added, to native English, thus losing their own personal style of voice. So why might this happen? When AI tools are trained on existing texts, which are often from native speakers, they might suggest changes that conform to standard grammar and style norms. If students rely too much on these suggestions, the original voice could be overshadowed. Like if a student uses a unique metaphor, the AI might suggest a more common cliche phrase, diluting their creativity. Now I want to add the so-called standard grammar is actually the so-called uh, Anglo-European, British, or American, usually American, because a lot of the pre-training texts are coming from America or Western context. So here's my own voice adding to DeepSeek's voice. So the so-called standard is coming from certain communities' standards. On the other hand, so DeepSeek's voice, these tools do help non-native speakers improve clarity and correctness. Now, again, I want to add my own voice. Clarity, correctness in the eyes of certain communities, the Western communities, which is important for academic or professional settings. If your audience is the Western audience, that's my voice. But there's a balance between correctness and maintaining individual voice. How do these tools handle creative or non-standard uses? Again, the standard coming from certain communities. So here is what DeepSeek give me. Standardization over originality. So AI tools often default to dominant grammatical or stylistic conventions, academic or formal English, potentially suppressing creative or non-standard expressions, unique metaphors, cultural idioms, or experimental syntax might be flagged as errors, nudging students toward conformity. That's why it is converging to the cliche, converging to the mediocre. That's my own voice. Cultural homogenization, over-reliance on AI might erode linguistic diversity. I would add cultural diversity and creativity. Disadvantaging regional dialects, I would add varieties. It's actually different varieties of language of English. This risks privileging a narrow standard voice, a narrow standard American English voice or American English, British English voice? What about other varieties of English? Marginalizing multilingual or multicultural perspectives. Dependency and agency. Automatic corrections could discourage critical self-editing, leading students to prioritize algorithmic approval over developing their own style, their own authorial voice. This might stifle confidence in their unique voice. Mitigating factors, one, tool design and customization. Some AI editors allow adjusting strictness, like formal or versus creative modes, or supporting dialectal variations, British versus Indian English, tools that explain suggestions rather than enforce them or prescribe them, empower students to make informed decisions. Educational frameworks, teachers, educators can frame AI as a starting point, emphasizing that clarity and correctness coexist with creativity, teaching students to critically engage with AI feedback, accepting syntax fixes, but retaining stylistic choices, fostering balance. Number three, promoting metalinguistic awareness, encouraging discussions about voice, audience, and purpose, helps students discern when to adhere to norms and when to break them. For example, a personal narrative might intentionally blend languages or dialects for authenticity, might translanguage, might transsemiotize. Cultural and linguistic representation. Developers can train AI on diverse corpora, including non-native and multicultural. I would say including English as a lingua franca corpuses, and including World Englishes, Asian Englishes corpuses, broadening the AI tool's understanding of what counts as a valid expression, and using feedback loops could let students flag overly rigid prescriptions. So conclusion, the risk of voice erosion exists, but depends on how tools are designed and integrated into pedagogy. AI can enhance clarity and accessibility without extinguishing individuality. If students are taught to wield it as a collaborator, not a dictator, the goal should be augmentation, enriching expression, rather than assimilation, and I would add prescription, converging to a single norm, regressing to the cliche, to the FH of the internet. By valuing linguistic diversity and fostering critical digital literacy, educators, teachers, developers can ensure AI supports rather than suppresses student voice. Now, after DeepSeek has given me this response, I ask, here is an example. My supervisor suggested me to choose GPT-2. Is this sentence correct? So I use this prompt to test DeepSeek. So DeepSeek showing me his or her is thinking process. The user is asking if the sentence, my supervisor suggested me to use ChatGPT-2, is this correct? Let me break this down. First, the sentence structure. The phrase suggested me to might be the issue here. In English, the verb suggest typically doesn't take an indirect object with to in that way. The correct structure is suggested that I use or suggested using. So suggested me to use is incorrect. As explained the grammatical rule here, verbs like suggest, recommend, advise have specific patterns. For example, suggest is usually followed by a that clause or a gerund. So the correct version should be, my supervisor suggested that I use ChatGPT, or my supervisor suggested using ChatGPT. Also note that ChatGPT should be capitalized. Okay, the user might be non-native English speaker, possibly student or someone in an academic professional setting trying to write correctly. The deeper need is to ensure the writing is grammatically correct, especially since about a supervisor's suggestion, which could be important for their work or studies. I should provide examples of correct alternatives and explain the grammar rule clearly. It's also good to reassure them that the sentence is understandable, but correcting it would make it more accurate. Now, I want to add my own voice here. I think this is DeepSeek is also trained on the prescriptive model. Now, I would say that um, all these grammar rules they originate from communities. So from one community, it might be grammatical, another community, it might be ungrammatical. So it's important as teachers to heighten our students' awareness that grammatical rules are made by people, are made by communities. So it's conventional. It is whether we want to communicate with members of certain communities, then of course we want ourselves to be intelligible to members of those communities, then we want to subscribe to those grammar rules or grammar conventions so that we can make ourselves uh, understandable and intelligible. So relativizing, there's no single universal rule which is correct all over the world. It's very important for sociolinguistically aware teachers and educators. Okay, so so this is DeepSeek response, correct version, and then giving me what is right, what is wrong. Now, C, I ask, suggest someone to use something is not correct, then I'm further debate with DeepSeek, and then it is telling me why it's not correct. It's still citing me the norm, probably from American English and British English. The inner circle from our applied linguists, the world English's point of view from those inner circle, the norm, they call it norm originating, but we can problematize that. So that's why I say, but there are more people using this pattern. So DeepSeek also think, so DeepSeek is thinking maybe from inferences from other languages and maybe suggest is similar to encourage, to tell, to ask with this pattern. So it's trying to, and then saying informally you're okay, but formally it is not okay. So it is still telling me the American or British, the inner circle norms. And then, but then it is talking about descriptive or prescriptive. Should we be prescriptive or should we be descriptive as applied linguists, as educational linguists? And then what should learners do? So here I think that I have my own stance. DeepSeek has their own stance. My own stance is as a sociolinguist, as someone trained in the world Englishes, Asian Englishes, English as a lingua franca, of course, we want to say that I want to help you to help my students to pass the exam. If this is TOEFL, then we need to subscribe to American norms. If it's IELTS, then British norms. But while we are helping students to have this access to these Western dominant conventions and norms and grammar rules, we also need to heighten our students' awareness that these norms are not universal. And there are other emerging norms from other communities, especially when English is spoken by many, many people who speak it as an additional language and use it as a lingua franca. So um, so I'm making this short video is to say that, okay, number one, DeepSeek really shows me, well, at least part of the thinking process, and it helps me to understand the logic, why it gives me such responses. So that helps me to enter into a discussion, a debate, a conversation with DeepSeek. So it's kind of like a debating partner, a conversation partner. It's not like I must follow whatever grammatical rules it is giving me. And number two, I am leveraging this conversation, this debate, or this discussion with DeepSeek to show that as teachers, of course, we want to help our students to pass these high stakes exam. And we cannot change the exam system overnight. We cannot ask IELTS, we cannot ask TOEFL to broaden their grammatical rules to include world Englishes, global Englishes, Asian Englishes, to include English as a lingua franca, different multiple norms, multiple rules. Maybe logistically, it is not practical, it's not easy to do that as of this moment. So we can still, while helping in a pragmatic way, but also in a critical pragmatic manner, we help students to say that, okay, we need to pass these exams. So we are helping you, we are on the same page, but we also need to say, these are just norms from a certain community. And when we interact with people coming from different communities from all over the world, make sure that we are more open-minded and make sure that we are more multicultural in our mindset instead of saying, oh, you're wrong, but saying that people coming from different communities might be familiar with different ways of speaking. And ultimately, making our communication a success is the reality check, right? For communication. Now, if it's for examination, of course, I will take a critical pragmatic approach, and teachers can take this approach, but at the same time, do not reproduce and perpetuate the mindset that there is only one universally correct kind of English, and do not perpetuate the hierarchy saying that British English is better or American English is better. It all depends on your communicative purpose and your audience and the communities that you want to interact with. So it is very much open-ended. And of course, there are risks in making our decisions, in taking whether this community norm as a reference point. And in our teaching, while it is not practical to start with multiple norms, but we can give a small example to illustrate to students that there are multiple norms and there are multiple situations with multiple audiences. So to say, like in American English, you have different pronunciation from British English and from Australian English and from Manchester English, right? There are many different varieties of English, and there's no one perfect way of speaking. So in this way, we will democratize English and the ownership of English and deconstruct the hierarchies among the so-called accent hierarchy. Now, I understand in real life, in a high-stake job interview, in a high-stake exam, we cannot change overnight the hierarchical system. We cannot change it. So critically, pragmatically, we will help students to 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 win the game, to win the competition. But at the same time, we will not perpetuate the mindset that there is some accents which are intrinsically better or more beautiful or more elegant. We won't perpetuate this kind of mindset, this kind of attitude. So I always say, in front of God, everyone is equal. In front of a sociolinguist, every language, every variety, every way of speaking is potentially equally beautiful, equally elegant. It depends on your purpose. It depends on what you want to do with your language. So I'll end my short video here and hope you like it. And please leave me a comment and tell me whether you agree with me or whether you have any feedback. If you are a teacher, I would like to hear how you would take it and go into your classroom when you encourage your students, whether you would encourage your students to critically engage with AI or to say, oh, I don't want you to use AI as an editor. Or when you use AI as an editor, you critically engage with AI's recommendations. Thank you and happy Lunar New Year. 恭喜发财，新年快乐，新年快乐，恭喜发财，拜拜。